In medieval Venice, the Doge and other political officials were not exempt from being insulted by the public. The use of derogatory names such as shit and fart was a reflection of the tension between the ruling elite and the rest of society. As Darren Acemoglu and James A. Robinson explain in their book The Narrow Corridor, this practice is an example of how the relationship between state and society can impact the preservation of liberty and democracy. Let us remember that these Venetians were arguably the first to end slavery in the world, and they did it back in the late 800s. In medieval Venice, the Doge and other political officials were appointed by a council of aristocrats, known as the Great Council. However, the power dynamics between the Doge and the Great Council were not always stable. If the Doge acted up or went against the interests of the ruling elite, the Great Council had the power to remove him from office. In such cases, the Doge would be replaced by a new official, who would then be given a new official title. It is believed that the practice of insulting political officials was a way for the people to express their discontent with the ruling elite, and to remind them that their power was not absolute. While the people may not have had direct power over the appointment of political officials, they could still exert influence through various means, including insults and public demonstrations. It has not been stressed by most historians that so many of the Milanese political leadership had surnames beginning Kaga or Kaka-, that is to say, shit. Cagapisto probably means shit pesto, as, for example, in the pasta sauce. In the case of the two brothers Gregorio and Guglielmo Caconarca, again both Iudices and active consuls between 1143 and 1187, their surname means shit in a box. That of Arderico Caganosa, consul in 1140 and 1144, means shit in your pants. Other prominent families included the Cagalenti, shit slowly, the Cacane Basilica, shit in the church, the Cacarana, shit a frog, the Cagatossaci, toxic shit, and there were many more. Narrow corridor. In a society where the ruling elite holds significant power and there are limited avenues for expressing grievances, insulting political officials becomes a form of resistance. It is a way for the people to express their discontent and frustration with the ruling elite. This practice is a manifestation of the power dynamics between the Leviathan state and society. The ruling elite hold the power, but the people have the ability to push back and challenge that power through various means, including hilarious insults. However, the downside to this is that the country was not a true republic and relied on all-powerful aristocrats to run the government. Insulting political officials is a relatively ineffective means of challenging the ruling elite's power, see Twitter, and it can even be counterproductive. Our free speech rights grant us the ability to be critical of leaders that fail us, but Americans would be better suited getting more involved in local politics since many city councils in this country are run by the lunatic fringe. The use of social media and other communication technologies has created new avenues for expressing grievances, when it's not being curtailed via collusion between the state and corporations. We see you FBI, and challenging the power of the ruling elite. However, the power dynamics between state and society remain a complex and delicate issue, and there is always a risk of undermining democratic norms and institutions through the misuse of language and rhetoric. In modern times, the relationship between state and society continues to be a critical factor in preserving liberty and democracy. A great piece of writing on this topic is the short 60-page book, Anatomy of the State by the economist Murray Rothbard. Rothbard regards the state as a predatory entity. It does not produce anything but rather steals resources from those engaged in production. How can an organization of this type sustain itself? It must engage in propaganda to induce popular support for its policies. Court intellectuals play a key role here. In conclusion, the practice of insulting political officials in medieval Venice serves as a powerful reminder of the reality that us plebs have always had it out for those who rule over us, and vice versa. It also highlights the ways in which people might relieve the tension and power imbalances that exist in any society where a ruling elite holds significant power. For this essential acceptance, the majority must be persuaded by ideology that their government is good, wise, and, at least, inevitable, and certainly better than other conceivable alternatives. Murray Rothbard. In summation, is it time that we bring back this trend from more than a millennium ago? Many state officials have gotten too big for their britches. Write a comment below on what politician you would call out and what you would name them. Extra imaginary internet points for the use of Latin.